Welcome to Storytime at the Rubus, a weekly podcast about the Bonnaroo Music and Arts Festival. I'm your host, Charla.
And I'm Daniel. And Charla, we got a special guest on this week. I think a lot of our listeners are going to know him already. He's one of the best writers in Chattanooga. Sometimes we give him a text and we're like, want to know what Goober's up to. Who is that on the line?
Hey guys, how are you? I love that. Best writers in Chattanooga. That's like world's tallest midget or something, right?
No, man, that's high class. You guys have a lot going on in Chattanooga these days.
It's getting better. It is getting better for sure.
I hadn't really spent a lot of time over there until recently. We came to visit you guys for Moon River. And, you know, usually when I'm coming in, we're going to a restaurant or two or going to one of Russ's bars or going hiking or something like that. I feel like I got a better taste of Chattanooga at Moon River than I had with anything else. You guys put on a show over there.
Nice. Yeah, it was a lot of fun seeing you guys. That was another mini Roo, wasn't it? We saw Lindsay and Zach and you guys, and Russ and I were there. That was a lot of fun. Yeah. That was cool.
I hate that I missed the party the second day where they were hanging out, drinking beer in the back of a truck during the rain out.
I didn't go in. I was 20 feet away or 20 yards away, and the lightning hit and my ride. And had to make a call, and I said, let's go home and see what happens. So yeah, that was a weird deal, but it worked out. A lot of people had a good time.
I like that
in a weird thing.
I like that side of town on, what is that, the north side of Chattanooga?
We call it the North Shore, yeah, for
North
sure.
Shore. What would be some of your picks if somebody's coming into town and wants a good bar to go to or a good restaurant?
Well, that's the thing, and I don't know how your day went, but the thing about Chattanooga that I think is different than some other cities is you can park and pretty much navigate and get to a lot of places without getting back in the car. Like if you just go to Main Street, that would be my advice. Go to Main Street, park, and just walk up and down. You're going to find good restaurants and bars, and now there's music. Barrel House is just opened. Songbirds is just a few blocks away. That's kind of one of the things that makes it a little different than some other cities, I think. You don't have to continuously get an Uber or a Lyft or, get back in the car. You can walk and hit a lot of places. So
yeah, that's very true. I don't think we're supposed to be doing this, so hopefully I'm not admitting to a crime here, but usually we'll park at that Walgreens on the corner on the North Shore and just walk up and down, hit up some of those stores and the ice cream shop. And You're right. The other area that I can think about is that whole strip where Taco likes to hang out at the Bitter Alibi and the Pickle Barrel. That's all in the same area.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's don't give away your secrets.
That's okay. They don't have a number. It's all right.
Yeah. But that Walgreens is right there on the corner in the North Shore. And you can go right or left. It's not quite as happening as Main Street is, but it's still pretty cool. So yeah, I'm glad you had a good time. It was a lot of fun seeing you guys.
So Barry, I feel like a lot of people know you fairly well from 3 or 4 years worth of the What podcast now, but we don't usually hear a lot about what you're up to other than like music industry related stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do over at the Chattanooga paper and kind of what non-Bonnaroo things you get up to at the day job and after hours?
Well, wow. Okay. I've been there since 1987, which, kind of like, what are you going to do when you grow up and get a real job kind of thing. I've covered mostly entertainment, food, and all the fun stuff. I mean, I've always had I consider it the best job in the world. No question about it. I get to do all the cool stuff. So, like Steve Martin and Martin Short were in town last night. And
did you go to that show?
I didn't go to the show, but I got to talk to them 2 weeks ago. I saw them the last time they were here. I'll be honest. I stayed home and watched my beloved Notre Dame Irish football team literally crap the bed. So I wish I'd gone and had a laugh.
I feel like every team other than the Volunteers crapped the bed yesterday for everybody.
What a great game that was. I'm not a Vols fan, but that was so much fun. I loved watching that. But
now wait a minute. We went over the lead there. You got to talk to Steve Martin?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, twice now. I know, right? Literally one of my heroes. This is the second time I got to interview the two of them. And the first time, Steve Martin and Brian Wilson are the two of them that I was 100% convinced I was going to go Chris Farley. I was
like the old Saturday Night Live skit. It's like, so you were in the Beatles.
You were in the Beatles. That was cool. What was that like? And I almost did with Brian Wilson because he's a pretty tough interview.
Well, how did it go with Steve?
Oh, he's awesome. The first time, which was 4 years ago, the two of them had just pretty much started this tour, and it was pretty much just say hello and then hit record.
Yeah.
They were, playing off of each other and riffing, and it was just so funny. And this last time, Martin Short was in his garden, I guess, in Canada, and Steve was in New York in his home office, and they were a whole lot more serious. And I've always told people, comedians are not the worst. They're just not the interview that you think they're going to be. They're
Those
not
guys
funny.
Are like very studious. It's been years ago, but I read his book, Born Standing Up, and he almost treats it like a science.
Right.
Yeah, it's their job. And I mean, I get it, but I think, fans say like, oh, I bet that was so funny. I'm like, no, it's never. Who was the only one that was funny? Well, those two that time, I think, Kevin James was funny, just because I think he's naturally funny. But most of them are just, it's, what time of day do you get up? And, it'd be like, I don't know, if somebody walked up and said, hey, you're a comedian, tell me a joke, that's
be a little annoying.
Yeah, they don't do it. So this last time they were very respectful. And like I said, look, when Let's Get Small and Comedy's Not Pretty, I knew every word. I knew every single word to those albums. I mean, I'm a huge Steve Martin fan, so that was a huge deal for me.
We did get to see that stage show. What was it, Charles? About 3 years ago?
Yeah, it was about 3 years ago. They came to Huntsville.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the same. You saw the same show I did. And
they cut up a little bit and riff a little, because when Steve came out at the beginning, what did he say, Charlotte? I forget how he put it.
He said, he said, I'm glad I came to Huntsville because Russellville was too happening or something.
And Russellville is like our kind of hometown that we're from.
Yeah.
With, like 15,000 people at most, something like that. So we're just like the two people in the whole theater that are like screaming.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, wait.
I told him, there's about 3 or 4 lines to me that are just drop dead funny. So Steve Martin, when he introduced Carl Reiner at the Kennedy Center, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but he came out. It's a tribute to Carl Reiner, and Steve Martin came out and he said, I could stand up here all night and tell Carl Reiner stories, how he's helped me and what a funny man he is, but this doesn't seem like the time or the place. And I just thought that's the funniest thing
at his Kennedy Center honor ceremony
I've ever heard. And then the other is when the two of them met for Three Amigos. They were going to do Three Amigos. They had not met. And Martin said he had to go by Steve's house to pick up scripts. And he walked in and Steve's showing him around and he's got all this artwork and it's beautiful. And Martin Short said, how did you afford all this? I've seen your work. And the third best line is Martin Short as Jiminy Glick when he interviewed Mel Brooks and said, so what's your big beef with the Nazis?
Oh yeah, because he did the producers. I forgot about that.
Yes. I just think those are lifetimes. Those are so funny.
Well, Charlotte does not let a Thanksgiving go by where we don't watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
For sure.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
All right. Well, we could do an hour talking about those guys.
Yeah, I didn't know we were going here. There.
No, it's all good. No, that's a funny story because that gives a good insight in like what you're up to at the day job, talking with.
I get to. I mean, I'm very, very, very lucky. I get to talk to people like this, and sometimes when I look back, I pinch myself. I mean, it's crazy. That same year, I think I got to talk to Steve Martin, Brian Wilson, and Graham Nash, and I think Alice Cooper.
Seeing like 15, 16-year-old Barry is probably having the time.
I was just never in my life imagined that was ever going to happen. So yeah.
Well,
very
cool.
cool.
Barry, let's get into like kind of what we are here to talk about today. All right, so you guys with the What podcast have been doing it about 4 years now, give or take?
18, I think 2018 was our first. So whatever. Okay. Yeah, 4 years. Yeah, we're starting season 5.
You guys are very good and way better than me and Carla could ever be at the inside baseball stuff because you're a journalist and Brad works in radio. You do this stuff day in, day out and talk to the right people that are making the decisions and everything. That's kind of why we stay out of that. We like to focus on like community stuff. But when you guys started the What podcast, did you think that you would get to the point where you become one of the top inside baseball podcasts for this kind of thing and get, taken up by Consequence of Sound and all that? Was that the intent?
No, absolutely not. And first, let me say, I think what you guys do is terrific. Yeah, we've all found our lanes, and you guys with the community stuff is not what we do, and I think it's terrific. I listen every episode, so
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and the guys up at Ruham, I mean, we've all found our spots, right? No, when we literally we were sitting, Brad and I would have lunch about every week or 2 weeks, and we realized we were talking about Bonnaroo year round. Now, we'd already been 12 years in a row or 13 years in a row, and we'd created Camp Nut Butter, and I mean, it had become a thing. And I said one day we should do I think I said we should do a Facebook Live from Bonnaroo, and his eyes just lit up. And he called me the next day and he said, "We have a website, we have a name, Lord Taco." And I'm like, "Who is Lord? I've never heard of Lord Taco. What?" He said he's already created this and we're good. And I think he even then said he'd already reached out to AC Entertainment, or maybe it was that Monday.
Yeah.
And said, "We're going to do this." And they said, "That's fine, but you can't use Bonnaroo in your graphics or the URL, obviously, because that's what they sell."
Yeah.
And we were like, cool, whatever. We're going to do this for about 6 weeks and that's it. It's going to die on the vine. And the big moment was we got Ashley Capps. I had interviewed Ashley, I think that same year. I was feeling probably pretty froggy. And so I thought, I'll just ask Ashley if he'll, come on our podcast. And so I think the 3rd episode he came on and we both looked at each other like, I think we're onto something here.
I feel like that's where you guys are sometimes the strongest. We're able to talk with him or Jeff Kahar or some of the other like real movers and shakers. And it seems to me like when you talk to them, they are more than transparent. They'll tell you anything. They'll tell you where they feel like they're doing a good job, and they'll also tell you where they feel they're messing up.
You just nailed it. I mean, that was an eye-opening. I mean, we knew, look, first of all, Brad is very good at what he does. He's a radio guy. So I would go into his radio studio to do the show. So we sounded good and he produced it well. And I mean, I couldn't believe it. I heard the first one. I was like, this sounds like a real, this sounds legit. And then we got Ashley, and I mean, the answers, we just did a high five thing, which I hope I can mention here in a little bit, but I just pulled some clips from it, and just what you just said, he was more than happy to talk to us. And the stuff he gave us was great. And we just thought, we think we're onto something here. We were both fascinated by the logistics. How do you get 80,000 people into Manchester, Tennessee, for a week? and why? How does that work?
I feel like you've gotten a lot of those kind of answers over the years. And
Yeah, I hope
you guys
so.
have gotten to the point where like the discussions that you're having with some of these people are almost like a graduate class level. I wanted to bring it down a notch and kind of help people who aren't this deep in the weeds understand this kind of thing a little bit better. So let's use, like, right now, we're getting towards the end of October. It feels like probably their PR machine is about to start ramping up before too long. Based on the conversations that you've been having with these kind of folks for years, where do you think they're at right now? Like, what are they doing right now to book artists and build a lineup and get everything lined up for 23?
Yeah. So that's interesting. So the perception for the casual fan is that it only happens for a week, so they probably only work for 2 months. The reality is these guys work year round, and they're busting it. I mean, they're already talking about 2024 and 2025 lineup.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, there's that level of thing. Plus, I know that they're looking back at what they did wrong and did right. And in my opinion, that's what has sort of made Bonnaroo successful since the very first, is and this is what Brad and I talk about on the show, and we have forever. They look at it from a fan experience as well as anybody that I've ever, been a part of. They kind of got a little bit astray, in my opinion, in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. But I mean, for anybody that's new to this whole scene, one thing that has changed in the past 3 or 4 years, like you mentioned, is where once upon a time, this was a production put on by 2 companies, Superfly and AC Entertainment. Nowadays, it's pretty much Live Nation and also C3. Can you kind of set the stage as to like who exactly is running things these days?
Yeah, and I think I got this right, because I wish I'm not 100%, but I think I have it right. Live Nation is the 800 million pound gorilla. They own C3 Presents and AC Entertainment. AC, as you said, was the co-founder of Bonnaroo with Superfly. Superfly's been out of it for a couple of years now. Live Nation bought 51% of AC originally around 18, I think.
Yeah.
And then basically all of it in 19. Ashley Capps, the AC and AC Entertainment, is now retired. So they're still involved. And in fact, you mentioned Moon River. AC Entertainment is very much involved in putting on Moon River, as is C3. C3 is the big umbrella. Those are the guys that do the actual work, if you will, along with AC. And coincidentally, it's some of the same people. Like Jeff Cuellar, who you mentioned, was originally with AC Entertainment, and then he was employed by Live Nation, and then he's now doing something entirely different. But some of the other people are now C3 or Live Nation employees.
Yeah. How many people do you think are left from like the old days before like the big Live Nation buyout? Is it that many, or is it a new crew these days?
As far as at Bonnaroo, or just in general?
Let's keep it to Bonnaroo.
Yeah. Not many. Like AC, I think, is down to about 4 or 5 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think that's right. They may have picked up some, but the pandemic, cut it quite a bit. But it's some of the same people for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that's important, and the reason I mentioned Moon River and Taco, Lord Taco, the producer of our show and part of the What podcast. He's the
gentleman.
He's the technical genius behind all of it. He and I actually did a couple of things at Moon River, and for us, it was really significant because of what I said. It felt like Bonnaroo kind of got a little bit astray the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And they did it, and they what's the word? They handled themselves very well with Moon River. For people listening who don't know, Moon River is a 2-day festival. They had it on Saturday, and then it rained, and Sunday basically got rained out. And almost immediately, when they canceled about 4:30, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, they sent out an email that said everybody's getting a refund, and it's 50%. Like if you bought just Sunday tickets, you were going to get 50%. If you bought 2-day tickets, you were going to get 50%, and it was going to also cover fees.
Yeah.
That alone was huge, you know.
I think that demonstrated how they learned a big lesson.
That's exactly right.
Years, especially after the rain out. Because I'll tell you, I mean, we talk to a lot of people in the community fairly frequently. The way it was handled or wasn't handled after the hurricane rain out in 21 left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths.
You're 100%
I mean, you could go back
right.
and say it's because they had some kind of banking irregularity, but there were still people that never saw a refund. So,
well, and my daughter who bought Moon River tickets had her refund within 8 days.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and so the bigger point of that is that's where Live Nation comes in. Because if it was just, you know, Daniel and Charlotte and Barry throwing a festival, they ain't getting their money back.
I don't know what to do to you.
They're not getting it back in 8 days. I promise you. You know, so that's where the Live Nation benefit comes into play.
It is funny. There's a lot of what ifs you can play. Like, how would things have played out differently if it was just AC and Superfly, if they had to survive a pandemic and a hurricane? Things may have been a lot different.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, Bonnaroo, you guys were there, was, you know, the number we've heard, and nobody has told me any different, was about 40,000 people.
It felt that way.
Yeah, there's no question. They lost money. You can't do that if you don't have a Live Nation behind you to back it.
You know, while you brought that up, you know, there's probably a lot of reasons that last year didn't go too well. I mean, there was still a pandemic, gas prices were pretty bad. You know, we were all dealing with inflation. And, you know, let's be honest, a lot of people saw the lineup as a little lackluster. What do you think Bonnaroo didn't do or to combat all that and get sales at a better point? How could they have done better?
I don't know that they could have.
Yeah.
I don't know that they could have. I think all of those things came into play. The good news, if you want to see it this way, and I think we'll talk about it more in the coming weeks and months as we have some guests from Live Nation and C3 and AC on the show, is the 40,000 who were there were hardcore.
Oh yeah.
They were the Daniels and the Charlas and the Pondos and the Berries, you know, they were there and they wanted to be there.
Well, there was also a good portion of people there for their first time. And, you know, it wasn't a large percentage, but I think that worked well because the first timers, the rookies, were outnumbered by people that were more than happy to tell them, oh, you should go check this thing out or do it this way. Go to this side of the stage, not the other, you know. So I think that does a lot to build good word of mouth of people that had a good experience from the community. Because that's big to me. And, you know, Charlotte, you want to speak to this too? To us, that's Bonnaroo's biggest selling point and has been for a decade or more, is the people there that come.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree.
I want to make sure I understand you. Are you saying you think there were more first timers there than regulars?
Oh, no.
Okay. I think good, because that's not true. It was definitely not. It was. That's what I'm saying. The people that were there are, you know, they'd been there before, and they wanted to be there, and they knew what they were getting into. Yeah. Now there were a lot of first timers. Yeah. Okay. I misunderstood, but
So what I'm saying is, I think the first timers had a good experience.
Yeah, for sure.
They had a lot of people. The enthusiasm is contagious, I think. So when they see a lot of veterans who are like really hardcore into it, especially after a couple of years away, they get swept along.
Absolutely. I mean, look, you guys know, you were there. It was hot. I was so ready to go home on Thursday night, but I still had a blast. And, you know, by the end of the following week, I was over it, and I was like, yep, can't wait. Next, what's next year, you know? So yeah, it's something special about it for sure.
This is one area where I think like your camp and ours differs a little bit, because like Charlotte and I actually enjoy the challenge of it a little bit. You want to speak to that, babe?
I mean, I really love the challenge of it. It prepares me for the rest of the year. Truly.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of fun because like at the end of the weekend when you're like beat and so tired and like you just want to lay down for like a week straight, you feel like you've accomplished something. At least that's how I feel.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I totally agree. This was just an unusual year. There was a lot of different things going on that, you know, way inside baseball for me personally type of stuff. But when it was all done, it was like, yeah, glad I did it. I mean, there was no question in my mind that I wasn't going. You know, and that's part of that is because we live so close. I mean, I've said, and I mean it, if I like Brad, you know, Brad didn't make it this year because he has a new job and moved to New York, and that was going to involve planes and moving this and that and taking time off. I mean, he'd just taken that job. So, you know, I was very fortunate. For me, it's just hop in the car and drive an hour. So, I mean, that's a huge advantage that I don't take lightly. You know, I don't want to undersell. But you know, this festival, I love it. I love every single thing about it. And we spend the fact that you and I, what is this, October 16th? Whatever. and we're talking about it, you know, whatever. Yeah. Whenever we're recording this, I mean, that's amazing to me. But
right now is an interesting time because we're almost at the kickoff of rumor season, because a lot of bands are announcing their schedule for next year. Like I feel like everybody had their dashes or their hopes dashed when Dead and Company announced their tour, and it was pretty clear that we're not going to get Blink 182 and stuff like that. That's kind of what I wanted to get into with you a little bit, just kind of like a surface level, not as deep as you guys go into it. Like, how many do you think are booked at this point? How many do you think they have booked? Do they have the majority of it? Do they still have a handful to go, or is it pretty much ready to go?
Percentage wise, I don't know, because it changes year to year, but yes, they have a good number booked, and they have a good number of their headliners booked for sure. And what they are able to do, and I went back and looked because I knew we were going to talk, and forgive my shameless plug.
No, please go ahead.
But we did an interview in March of 2021 with Ali Hedrick and John Bargiano.
Yes, that was fantastic.
I know, right? That was
the one where you guys drove up to Knoxville to go talk to him.
No. That was Steven and Brian. This was, that was great too. Those Steven and Brian, they're the ones who booked that 2020 lineup that never happened. Yeah. Man. Allie and John are promoters for C3. And so we got an actual, insight sort of how they, how these acts are booked. So it was March 6th, 2021. You can go to the whatpodcast.com and re-listen to it. So
yeah, Taco put in a search function on there now. So
I know. Yeah, he's killing it, man. He's great. But those guys were amazing. The stuff that I thought I knew, I didn't know. And like you said, they were so willing to share. I think they reached out to us and said, hey, we've been listening to the show and you're getting some stuff wrong and you're getting some stuff right. And, I was like, cool, tell me.
So, speaking of that crowd that like does the booking, like you've gotten to talk to them more than most people have. How much do you think they listen to the audience when it comes to like booking the lineup? There's no lack of place to find it. You can look on Reddit pretty much any day of the week and see what people on the Bonnaroo Reddit are saying.
It's a bunch. But I'll also say this. So Brian Benson is one of the guys at AC that helps book it. And, I tell this story all the time. I saw him at Moon River a couple of years ago, and in one of my dumber moments, I walked up and said, you know who you should get? You should get Dolly. Yeah, I know.
Your mouth to God's ears.
It was kind of half joke, and he just looked at me like, are you kidding? Like, seriously? You think I never thought of that? It was one of those. So I can, I'll tell you this. I was on the committee for our festival here in town, Riverbend, for a couple of years, and it was amazing. We would get new people that would come in, right? And they would come in with this piece of paper and they said, guys, I'm here to save this festival. I've got the list. And every time Jimmy Buffett was number one on their list. And this was 15 years ago. And we'd all look at him and say, he ain't coming to Chattanooga. He's never, ever coming back to Chattanooga again. They've tried, And then they would go down the list and it would be like, well, that guy's dead. That guy's not touring anymore. They're going to be in Europe. There's all kinds of things that, I think most people just think you walk into like a big box store and pull a band off the shelf and put together your festival, and they don't understand routing. They don't understand timing. They don't understand the fact that the bands are in the studio, not in the studio, just came off a tour. Somebody's wife just had a baby or somebody's husband, there's all kinds of things that go. To the casual fan, it just seems like, well, why don't you just book, Paul McCartney and the Rolling Stones? I mean, that's how hard is that? And they don't understand that their budgets are expensive. There's all kinds of different things. And then what we learned, and I will say this, what we learned from Brian and Steven during that one interview was they really focus on what they call lanes. And I think that's what Bonnaroo and some of the other bigger festivals do well.
Yeah. That's probably one of the biggest things I've learned from listening to you guys for the past couple of years is learning how they do those type of lanes.
Lanes, right. Like our festival here in Chattanooga, you get whoever says yes. You know what I mean? We're not big enough to hold out and say, well, we can't put two R&B bands on the same night. You take whoever the biggest you can get that you can afford. Bonnaroo tries very hard to say, we're going to put Tame, on the stage on Friday. Well, who can we book the rest of that night that would appeal to Daniel?
King Gizzard. That was the plan at one point.
Yeah, then that's what they try to do. Now, they don't always hit it just right, but that's what they try to do so that that you're, if Tame was the only band on the lineup that appealed to you, you've got a real hard choice to make, right?
Yeah.
But if there's 4, 5, or 6 others, it's an easier choice.
For a brief period of time before the cancellation happened or before some moves happened, there was going to be a night in which there was going to be Tame Impala, King Gizzard, and My Morning Jacket all in a row for me. Last, it could never be.
I remember. That's what I'm saying. That 2020 lineup was a dream.
So I want to talk about that here in just a moment. Real quick, though, because we have a Zoom break. Me and Charlotte are going to take a real quick break, and we're going to thank our Patreons. And I wanted to come back to that point here in just a minute after the break.
Hey, everybody. It's Future Daniel and Charlotte.
Yeah, we're recording this on Monday night. I like doing this little middle segment so we can take a break and thank our Patreons and also just honestly bullcrap a little bit about what's been going on.
Yeah, so tell them what we did last weekend.
Yes, so last weekend we went to Atlanta to go visit Mitchell for his birthday. It was awesome.
Yes, we went to a really cool bar called Church.
Yeah, that was weird but fun. It kind of creeped me out a little bit.
It was in Edgewood, part of Atlanta, and it is a Catholic themed bar. And it was a lot of fun.
Did you have some of the sacramental wine?
Yes, the sangria. Yes, I did.
Was it pretty good?
It was okay, yeah. It's all right.
When I go to one of those places, my go-to is either a bourbon and Coke or an old-fashioned.
Well, I do not drink wine ever, but that was really good. That was their, drink of choice there. They're, what they're known for, so I got that.
There was another one. I wish I remembered the name of it, but there was this arcade-themed bar.
Joystick,
yeah. It was a block or two up the way from there. That was cool. They had, old games like Mortal Kombat and some pinball machines.
And they had karaoke in the back.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun.
Mitchell did that. He was singing Don't Stop Believing by Journey with a couple of guys when I went back there. He was, you cannot stop Mitchell. You can only hope to contain Mitchell. And he was uncontainable that night for his birthday. It was ridiculous. Me and Charlotte crashed a little early. We went back to the Airbnb, and then they come rolling in there at like 5 a.m. It was ridiculous.
So I had a dream. We were at the Airbnb, and I dreamed that they came back, and they brought somebody with a walker.
What? That didn't actually happen, just for the
think
record.
So.
No, I don't think so. It was late, and the room was still spinning. I'll just put it that way.
I had a lot of dreams.
But yeah, fantastic time with Mitchell as always. Send your boy a shout out. It was his birthday 2 weeks ago. He's got a lot of fun stuff going on. I think he's coming to do his poetry thing here in town here in about a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. So check out Licorice Pizza, his show on Facebook where he sells vinyl records. We got to meet his cats that sometimes make a cameo in that. Charlotte, do you want to thank our Patreons? I'll tell everybody about it after you list their names.
Sure. Okay, I'm just going to say the first names because I always mess up the last names, as you guys know. All right, you ready?
Yeah, sure.
All right, Preston, Nick, Maddie, Sean, McFerg, Andrew, William, John, Captain Dan, Lucy, Benjamin, Ross, Kent, Michael, Joshua, Madison, Scott, Greg, Eric and Ben, Natalie, Beyond the Hypnotic.
That's
Jace, Evan, Chloe, and Sean.
Yeah, thanks everybody. You know the deal by now. You can go to patreon.com/Rubus. 80% of everything is going to go to the Bonnaroo Works Fund. The remaining 20% will go to fund something fun for our next Rubus party. Used to be that we would have our Rubus parties on Wednesday night, but I think now we're doing it on Tuesday and Wednesday. The precedent has been set as of last year. So I think on Tuesday, I'm not planning too far ahead, but it seems likely that we'll do another like EDM jam party with a couple of DJs. Campground DJs. I love for people to come to our party that are a campground DJ. So like if you're just bringing a board, you got stuff on a USB stick, I try to cram as many people as we can. Nothing specific further than that, but that's probably what we'll do Tuesday. And then I think like we mentioned last time, after we get a lineup in January, we'll start nosing around and see which of the smaller font bands wants to come play for us. Mm-hmm. You want to do anything else? How's it coming with your group?
Well, the Survey Monkey cut me off at 40 responses. But
we got a good sample size.
Yeah, I think we got a really good sample size.
Can we officially say we are going to do it? Or do we need some more time to think on it?
I mean, I feel pretty confident about it.
Okay, so would you like to say that we're going to do it? It's on you. This is your project. I'm here to help. Oh. Brooklyn is here to help. And part of the point is we're going to have a lot of people that will be in the group to help.
That's true. So I think the next step is I'm going to create a group me.
Okay.
Because I kind of questioned everybody, and I was like, well, what's the best method of communication? Because, a lot of people don't use Facebook, or a lot of people don't use Twitter.
Yeah.
So I said, what's the best method of communication for everyone? And a lot of people were saying group me.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to create a group me and get everyone to join on there so we can kind of get a game plan going and kind of figure out literally what this is going to be everyone's role. This is going to be what everyone is going to do, and just kind of start planning it.
Okay. I think if we had one meeting before Christmas, just so we kind of know what we need to do and kind of be thinking over the holidays, I think that'd be pretty good,
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, that's Charlotte's project. I'm here to support her, but it looks like we're going to officially do that. I think so. Okay.
I think we can say it. I guess so.
Yeah. If you guys want to do it, we will need your help. Charlotte will be in touch with you very soon.
Definitely need some help.
Two other things real quick before we get back to Barry. Patreons. Sometime in the next 2 weeks, you're going to get a Patreon-only episode. We just kind of wanted to update you with a couple of things privately. So be on the lookout for that in a week or so, probably before Halloween. Definitely before Halloween. In fact, I might do a bonus episode for Patreons only that'll be recorded from the Halloween party, our annual Rubus Halloween party that's next Friday night. Yeah. Some people that are listening to this are going to be there. If you were within a drive of Huntsville, hit me up. We'll get up with you. Other thing I was going to update everyone on before we go back to Barry. I like to be transparent about these things and give you a heads up of where we are on maintenance on a 1989 school bus. So I worked on that over the weekend. Bus is looking great. For a moment there, it wouldn't start, and I'm like, what is this? What's going on? But I just had to give it a couple of gallons of diesel, and we were good to go. Had to give it some fresh diesel. Ran it, revved it up for a little bit. Everything is going good. I'm going to put some additive in it in the next week or so because it's getting cold weather season.
So you know how it does that thing where when you take out the key, it won't turn off?
Yeah, I showed that in an Instagram. You have to go under the hood and twist this little thing.
Someone messaged us on Instagram.
Yeah.
I forget who it was. I'm so sorry. But someone messaged us on Instagram and said that that's actually really common
Oh, really?
in
I'm not
those
surprised.
years of Fords. And he was saying that he used to take his parents' Ford Bronco key and would like hide it. And he would like he would like leave it on and take the key out and hide the key.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I mean, it's no big deal. I just have to pop the hood and reach in there with a wrench and twist this one little thing, and it cuts off. It's no big deal. But yeah, just wanted to let you guys know, bus is running good.
Yeah, it runs fine.
It'll kind of sort of be in hibernation for a few months, unless there's something we really want to drive it to. We typically don't like driving it further than like about 20 miles in the off season or whatever, you know. I mean, I can make it, but I like saving my good luck for Bonnaroo and on mini roos and such. So I've mentioned this before. If you're near the Huntsville area, hit us up. You're always welcome to stop by our house and come sign it if you want to. In fact, if you are passing through the area, if we are in town while you're coming through, you're welcome to use the bus as a place to crash. You don't have to pay for a hotel or Airbnb if you're coming through Huntsville. Just make sure we're home so we can be a good host to you. Okay, Charlotte, anything else?
No, I think that's it.
That's it. All right, let's go back to our conversation with Barry.
Welcome back, everybody. We are back with Barry.
All right. Hey, Barry. So before the break, we were talking a little bit about the lineups that were almost not meant to be with 20 and 21. I know you were lamenting the fact that you didn't get to see Miley, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that was going to be Miley and Lizzo, and
oh man,
just everything about it was going to be.
I hate to go too deep into it, but I kind of feel like we need to talk about it a little bit because those lineups that we never got were so good that I kind of feel like Bonnaroo is competing against themselves to get something that good. How much pressure do you think is on them to get us a good 23 lineup?
I think it's huge. And it's not just because of Bonnaroo. I mean, I think Brad and we've tried to make this point this last year, and I firmly believe it. I think we're inundated. I think we're saturated with too many festivals. And it's part of because of the pandemic and just, there were just so many of them. And I don't think the Bonnaroo lineup last year was bad, but it wasn't stellar. And then on top of that, you're asking people to camp in a field for a week. And people could make the choice of going to other festivals and not have to camp in a tent.
See, that's where I kind of think that the lineup really comes into play.
Right.
I do too now.
If you get a stellar enough lineup, people are going to say, well, I don't care that I have to drive 6-7 hours to this, or I don't care that I've got to camp because that lineup is too good to pass.
That's right.
But
and I think Charlotte has made this point for a couple of years. We like the event. The lineup didn't matter until last year, and then it mattered.
Exactly.
And I think this coming year it's going to matter. And I think they know that. I know for a fact they know that.
Okay.
It's got to be pretty freaking great.
My feeling is they have to have a really good overall diverse lineup like the ones that we didn't get, or they have to really pull in a huge headliner. And I'll put it this way, and this is why I say that. We're coming up on 10 years that we had McCartney in 13. It doesn't feel like that long, but it is. People are still talking about that 10 years after the fact. That show is still generating really great word of mouth for them.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like they hoped U2 was going to do that. It kind of did, but not nearly to the level of a Beatle. I don't think anybody can do that.
No, I don't either. And isn't it funny? It's, you guys have talked about it. We've talked about it. Ashley Capps talked about it. He told us it's basically who's number one. It's Macca and then everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
there's no question. Yeah.
That was a funny thing about the 13 lineup. And maybe this should involve a conversation about budget, I suppose. Me and you have talked about this personally before. It's easy to look back on a past lineup with rose-colored glasses because there's a lot of names on it that are way bigger now than they were then. But even though they had to spend a lot of money on Paul in 2013, that was still an incredibly well-rounded lineup.
Yeah, it was great.
And you look at it compared to, what was it the year that U2 played? 2017, 18? I can't remember now. But the rest of that lineup kind of made you feel like they spent a lot of money to get U2 and didn't have a lot left.
Mm-hmm.
What's been your perspective on that? How does the budget play into those things?
That's that lane thing. That's where that lane thing becomes so important. I mean, I don't know where the lanes were last year. I think they've done a great job with the EDM tent or the EDM stage. It's not my thing, but that's a rock solid lane. And those fans were very happy last year, from what I gathered.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not for me. So, but beyond that, there weren't a lot of, just rock solid lanes, if you will. By lanes, for somebody who's just listening, like I said, it's that, here's my headliner, here's who I like, but what else am I going to do?
Exactly.
And, for you and I who've been there, we wanted to go to the plazas, we wanted to do this and that, we want to hang out with our friends. I mean, there's plenty to do. But for that person in Wisconsin trying to make a decision whether they, spend $400 on a ticket and then make the trip, it becomes a real decision.
Yeah.
And they know that. They are very well aware.
I think once you get them there once, you hook them in with the lineup. That's kind of the bait on the end of the fishing line. Once you reel them in and they get the experience out in the campgrounds, and they're able to go to like House of Yes and where else are out there at Where in the Woods, a bunch of different things. When they realize, oh, this isn't just a couple of stages, it's this whole deal.
Sure.
Then they're hooked for a long time,
Yeah, and
you got to get them there first.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there are 3 podcasts talking about it. Right. Exactly. I mean, it's not the lineup that we're talking about, it's the other stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's right.
So since we're on the topic, I want to talk a little bit about the non-music part. So like the experience in the campgrounds. I know you guys, you don't get to see it nearly as much as us and some of our friends do because you're in the press area. But, I tell people that, to me personally, it's kind of like Bonnaroo is trying to emulate Burning Man a lot when it comes to the camp experience. And I see that even more now that we've been. But it's frustrating sometimes because it often feels like we're taking one step forward and 2 steps back in that area. This is one of those deals where I have to be like constructively positive and like, I'm only criticizing because I love, them working with the community to put together the events this year was great. Like I was spoiled that they were working with us for Flip Turn and all that. But when they took away the tower entrance, the community was telling them, hey, this isn't the best idea. And it was kind of infuriating from a customer experience standpoint. Not to mention the loss of things like the Bonnaroo Beacon newspaper, the census, the fireworks, and a lot of other cut corners. And, I think maybe the festival already spoiled what you were going to tell us in the next podcast, that they're bringing that tower entrance back. But I hope that we don't overly celebrate the return of things that shouldn't have been taken away in the first place, But anyway, what's your perspective based on the interaction you've had with them about how the rest of that experience is coming along?
I think whether you knew it or not, I think you hit it on the head about 15 minutes ago when you said they learned. Conversations I've had, they learned from their mistakes.
Do you feel they're learning the right lessons?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. I think the Moon River thing was a bigger tell than some people want to believe. And I'm not saying that just because it happened here, but for them to give refunds and have it handled in 8 days, and for them to put together a Sunday night show. Now, part of that was because it was Drew Holcomb and he was a curator and all of that, but it's basically the same people.
That was pretty darn cool that he was able to spearhead that. I, of course, listened to that thing where you guys talked with them and everything.
Yeah.
That's one thing I love about Moon River is that they kind of have like a front man, like. Yeah,
and it's rare. There's nobody else does that. But my point again is it's pretty much the same people. And I don't work for them. I don't work for Bonnaroo. I'm in no way, paid by any of it, but that was a big, big deal. And I've had some conversations with several other folks that are involved, and there's some changes coming to Bonnaroo that I'm happy about. The tower is one. That's one of those. I mean, you're right. You're 100% right. Let's don't beat our chest over doing something that you shouldn't have done in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. They did it a couple of years ago too, when they made a big deal out of the return of Calliope. Am I saying
Calliope?
Calliope.
We go through this every time.
Come on,
but it was guys, come on, we love it, but people were begging you for 2 years to bring it back. It's let's keep things in perspective here.
Yeah, you shouldn't have got rid of the tower. So I think they, here's the thing. They knew they were lucky to get 40,000 people there last year. So they had a lot of costs. They had a lot to cut. And I'm not really, I don't have a clear sense of I can't put my finger on just one reason. It's like you said, the economy. I mean, the gas prices. I think I heard somebody saying, and unrelated but kind of related, the cost of just moving a band from one place to another went up 40%. 40%. So those costs had to be eaten by Bonnaroo. So now you get only 40,000 people in there. They took a huge hit. So the good news in my mind is they're coming back. They own the farm. You know what I mean? That kind of gets lost. You and I have talked about it because people in Manchester, and we have friends. We understand it's a little bit different, but it's not like it's a city festival.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people that don't get in the weeds, that's something that's easy to miss. It's like when you have a Lollapalooza or Austin City Limits, there's certain things you can't do in a situation like that. But when you own the property, you kind of get free reign to do a lot more. And that's kind of why Bonnaroo is a lot more fun sometimes.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. They can do things that others can't, and they're committed. That's the other thing. It's not like, we'll take a loss and just move on. They're committed, and my sense, I think, to answer what I think your question is they have had the hard conversations. The right people are back at the table. And the question they're asking themselves is, if I were a fan, what do I want?
That should be the number one question. That is very good to hear.
That's what it was for 18 years, pre-pandemic, pre-Live Nation. We all, like I said, we want to throw shade at Live Nation because they're the, corporation and all that. But from what I have been able to glean, the smart people are back at the table, and they're asking that very, very simple question. If I were a fan, what do I want? What is my expectation? Whether it's lineup, ticket refunds, ease of tickets, it's kind of how do I want to say this?
You gotta be careful with your words here, don't you?
No, it's not like that. No, I'm not going to reveal anything. The guy who runs our municipal theaters, the Tivoli and the Memorial Auditorium, he said something to me years ago, and it just sounds so stupidly simple. He said, Barry, if the tour bus shows up at 8:00 in the morning and the coffee's hot and the donuts are fresh and the bathrooms are clean, it's a good day. You know what I mean? And then the show is good because they're happy. But if they show up and we're giving them attitude from the start, it's a bad show. And that sounds so simple, right? But
it just goes to show that not only the things have to run well, they have to run transparently well.
Right. And every time,
A
And
user
so,
or a participant shouldn't have to know how hard it is for these things to run. It should just be like butter to them. I mean, it's fun for like me or you to know because we're just curious, from a professional
yeah,
point.
but so from Bonnaroo's point of view, if you or Charlotte want to buy tickets and you get online and it's easy and you get a nice email back said, hey, can't wait to see you, you're happy.
Even that small steps generate like
Correct.
word of mouth. People will post on Twitter or Facebook, hey, I got my ticket. Who else is going?
That's right. But if it takes you 15 different clicks and you get kicked off and you're pissed off and you don't know if you got your tickets or not, it already puts a bad taste in your mouth.
But
right.
Critical here is that they continue that attitude after they've already got your money.
That's right. And then like Brad and I have said, my thing about Bonnaroo is I never felt like they had their hand in my wallet.
Now,
kind of felt a little bit like that, the last couple of years.
I was going to ask, do you still feel that way? Because me and Charlotte had some opinions after last year.
No, I'll be honest. It felt like and we blamed Live Nation, because that was the big change. And maybe that's true. Maybe it's fair. I don't know. But it definitely changed for sure. And that's, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Well, my criticism that you've probably heard this from me before. My criticism isn't that they have to have sponsors. I know what you have to do in this day and age. You can't ignore that. But I think they need to work with sponsors that make a fit for the community. Charlotte, do you want to give some examples?
Well, I just think some of the sponsors didn't fit. Truthfully, there was some that I saw that it just made no sense. It didn't really go with a music festival, in my opinion. It didn't really go with a music festival. I think that there's other sponsors out there that they would be able to attain that I've seen at other festivals that would make radically way more sense for a music festival. But logistically speaking, I don't know how easy it would be for them to get those sponsors.
There's a lot of work doing that kind of thing behind the scenes. Right, but exactly. Charlotte and I have discussed this before. Like, we don't really care for sponsorship activations when it's something that takes you out of the alternative universe that is Bonnaroo. Like, okay, Ben and Jerry's, great sponsor, makes total sense because they're, it's kind of a hippie company. Some of the other ones that I'm not even going to name because I don't want to give them the space, just doesn't make sense to be in a space like that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And some of that probably is the shift, when it's a small, relatively small AC Superfly run thing, that's mom and pop compared to Live Nation. Live Nation is massive. So again, I don't honestly know how much to put blame on them versus just a shift. Maybe it was just, it's growing pains. I don't know.
I want to be optimistic and say it is growing pains. Like, I'll put it this way. You're talking about like AC and Superfly. Back in the day, it felt like Bonnaroo was kind of a crown jewel for them, and they would point to it as a way to brag about their company. You hope that Bonnaroo isn't just another piece of Live Nation's portfolio that they just happen to remember about every once in a while,
It is. I hadn't thought about it that way, but it is. They're so huge. But having said that, and again, I'm optimistic. The conversations I've had, it feels like the people around the table get it and understand, love it just like we do, and know they have to do right. So we'll see. Well, it's still a huge, it's a huge thing. So they have to make money. One of my local guys that runs a big organization here always says, no money, no mission. It's just one of the smartest things I ever heard him say. You got to make money, you got to make money or it goes away. But I honestly do feel like, that they get it now, whether, somebody steps in or not. They took a huge hit last year. Let's just be honest. And they took hits, but the years prior. So,
well, sometimes
they got to do right.
sometimes it's how Walmart or Target does on the day after Thanksgiving. You have to have a loss leader. You got to be willing to take a hit in order to make money off of something else. And that's kind of where I feel like, I mean, I know like 2% of what they know, but I feel like they have to maybe consider 23 to be a loss leader in terms of the lineup. Like maybe you got to take a little bit of hit so you are generating 10 years of word of mouth publicity like the McCartney show did. I don't know.
Interesting. I don't know. I don't know enough to know how they are about that. Mm-hmm. We did ask Brian and Steven, about that. Do you go ahead and commit? I mean, we all know. I mean, it's McCartney and the Rolling Stones, right? Those would be the ones you'd spend your whole budget on.
Oh, we have a third option. We want Gaga.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, or Taylor Swift. I mean, do you go ahead and pay whatever they ask and then populate the rest of the lineup with, not so great, or do you do it all at once? And they're like, no, we got to have a budget. I mean, they can't think that way. So, or do you spend whatever the number is for the Rolling Stones in 2023 on the thought that 2024 is a makeup date? They flat said, that's just stupid. We would never, you can't do it. So
interesting.
I know.
Well, again, I know it's rose-colored glasses, but me personally, I feel like 2013 is the gold standard.
Oh, I had no question about it. Or the first 2 or 3, depending on who you talk to.
But, or that too. That was a very different day and age back then.
Yeah,
if they can even get within spitting distance of the 20 or 21 lineup, I feel like that would be good enough.
I agree.
So, all right, Barry, I got one more question for you about this kind of thing before we get to our weekly picks. And I am not going to preface this any other way. I think you'll understand what I'm talking about. Something you guys talked about a week or 2 ago generated some controversy. So I'm just going to approach the question this way. What specific artist would you personally be really happy to see next year?
Oh, it's easy. My Morning Jacket.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what everybody suspected. Oh God. Me and Charlotte saw him a couple of weeks ago and oh my goodness, did they bring it?
Oh my, it's easy. That they are, in my opinion, the Paul McCartney show is the best show I've ever seen. I have ever seen, but My Morning Jacket is the perfect Bonnaroo act, in my opinion. So I've seen him 4 or 5 times now. Yeah, that's easy.
Okay. So I'm going to propose this to you. I think should they be on the lineup, and I won't put it any other way other than that, but if they're on the lineup in 23, I want you to come hang with us and get lit and be in, like, you remember in Titanic when Leo was upstairs with her and it was kind of like a snuffy party and he was like, hey, do you want to come to a real party? You want to come to a real party with us for My Morning Jacket?
I will go ahead and be on record and say, I'll see you there.
Yes. Yeah. All right.
Yes.
You're about to go have a good time with us. I hope you're going to be cool with a lot of stuff real quick.
I hope so. I'll do my best. I can't promise I'll be cool ever.
No. What are you talking about? You're the coolest. All right, Barry, I wanted to get you in on something that we sometimes do on this podcast. Sometimes we pick a thing or two. We have a weekly pick. Charlotte, apparently you gave Barry a good one about a couple of months ago about the reservation dogs. Oh. Yeah. How did you like the finale, by the way, of this second season?
Thank you. I told Daniel, Charlotte, thank you. That might be my favorite new series. I love that show.
Yes, it is fantastic.
It got renewed too. Yeah.
I love everything about it. Those kids are so funny.
Yes.
The writing is so great. I love everything about it. I laughed. Not the finale. The one, but the episode before the kid goes to gets busted and goes to the foster home.
Are you talking about the one where the cop got the
Yes. I laughed. And then all of a sudden the kid's in the foster home. I'm like, dang, that kind of sucks. But it's so good. And thank you for that. I love that show.
You're welcome.
All right, Barry. So guest always gets to go first on this. What are you picking for us? What's a good show or movie or album you've been listening to?
I thought about that. I'm an old school guy. Kelly and I, my wife and I, cleaning the house, going through old Christmas stuff today, and I went with Miles Davis.
Ooh.
I had to go back old school. Yeah.
Give us a song or an album. What's the first?
My
best
Funny
version?
Valentine, Bitches Brew. Those two albums are just incredible. Typically Kelly is kind of an Allman Brothers, which is fine by me, but it just didn't feel right today. So I went with Miles Davis. So that's what we've been listening to all day today.
Well,
and then the TV show already, Reservation Dogs, but I'm conflicted by She-Hulk.
What? Did you like it or no?
I liked it, but I didn't like the finale at all.
What? I did, where it kind of like breaks the fourth wall a lot. I love that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back. I love her. I think it's funny. I like the show. But I was kind of like, what's going on here?
Well,
so
let me word it in a way that won't give away spoilers for anybody that hadn't seen it, because it's very different. I loved that she took control of her own narrative, that she was like, no, I don't want the stereotypical ending for this that puts it in a man's perspective. I want this to be for me. And she basically like, no, I'm going to write my own story. I won't say any more than that because I don't want to spoil it, because it was so clever how they did that. But I loved it from that way,
like I said, I'm conflicted, but I like it. I thought it was funny. I'm glad I found it. It was kind of one of those where I was like, do I want to? And then I got committed. So I like that a lot.
I think it might be my favorite Marvel show they've done in the past 2 years, because she's so charismatic and funny, and it again, I have to be careful how I word it. It does a lot to break the Marvel stereotype. They've kind of gotten themselves into a rut a little bit, I feel like.
Yep, I don't disagree.
You got anything else?
No, I think those are the one. Oh, yes. I am absolutely obsessed with Smartless.
What is that? I haven't heard of that.
Oh, the podcast. It's Will Arnett, Jason Bateman, and Sean Hayes. And they have their, you'll thank me then.
Okay.
I feel like I'm giving. They have done a podcast for a couple of 3 years during the pandemic, and their guest lineup is incredible. From
Charles,
Paul McCartney.
I thought these were jokes. They really had these people on.
They've had Paul McCartney and
Ewan McGregor,
Jordan Keel. It's incredible, and they are so mean to each other. It is. I laugh and laugh and laugh. I'm obsessed with it.
Okay, we'll check this out.
Smartless. It's a dumb name. I don't. But anyway, I love it. I think I've listened to every single episode.
Okay. I am putting it on my list. I'll listen to you guys first, but if it's not you, I pick something else to listen to if I'm cutting the grass or going running or whatever. So I'm putting this into my rotation.
Good. I can't wait to hear what you think. I'm obsessed with it.
Charlie, you want to go first or should I?
I'll go.
All right. What you got?
All right. So I was messing around with a playlist on Spotify, and I was like, let me make me a classic rock playlist. And I made one what songs my parents like, and I've been really into Bob Seger lately.
She was playing this last night on the way back from her wedding, and I was like, man, this is pretty good.
And I did not realize the amount of music, like the catalog that Bob Seger has. And I guess that's pretty much it. I've been really into Bob Seger.
Well, no, there was some other good stuff. She was listening to Peter Frampton. Charlotte has a theory that we might be getting Frampton next year.
Well, yeah, I have I just want to start the ringer. I don't really have a theory.
Oh,
interesting.
I would enjoy that.
Yeah, Pete, the guitar player, he's good. That'd be fun. Yeah. He'd be a good legacy act.
Yeah.
That Frampton comes alive.
She has a story about that. You want to tell a little bit of it?
No.
We'll tell you when we're not recording.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways, I did not realize like the amount of music that Bob Seger had, and I was looking him up, and apparently he had the last time he toured was 2019, and he had the third most successful tour in the United States in 2019. Really? Yes, which just sounds crazy, but yeah. And
I wouldn't have thought of that. Okay.
Yeah. And that's it.
All right. Well, that's
really into Bob Seger.
Really up to date with your picks there, Charles.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we're all doing classic. I was feeling bad, like I was going to go old school. So That's where I live a lot. So, cool. Yeah.
All right. So for mine, my pick originates from something that was written back in the 50s and 60s a little bit. I'm going to tell everybody that the new Lord of the Rings show is amazing, and please don't listen to any of the picky haters who might have mean things to say about it. Anybody that knows me super well knows that like I pretend to be a Tolkien scholar. I've written everything he's ever wrote. The new show on Amazon, it strays a little bit every now and then because it's got to compress like 1,000 years worth of story into like just a season or two worth of a show. I don't mind that so much. It is so good. It's so faithful to the tone of Lord of the Rings and Tolkien stuff. I love it so much. There was a thing or two that they had to change because of like rights issues. It didn't bother me nearly as much as it did some others. The finale blew my mind. Charlie, I'm sorry if I woke you up the other night when I was watching it at midnight when it dropped. No. I didn't. No. Charlie, will you go back and watch the whole season with me?
Probably not.
Oh, man. But if you haven't given it a chance, I have loved the new Lord of the Rings show on Amazon. I think it is just as good as the new Game of Thrones show on HBO. Don't ask me to compare because they're two very different things. I enjoy them dearly for different reasons. Barry, have you watched that new Game of Thrones show?
Yeah, House of Dragons. I have watched it. I'm completely caught up. Yep. And I started episode 1 of the Lord of the Rings thing. So I'll go back and continue watching.
It's on the nerdy side of things. I've had people ask me, like, do I have to watch all these old movies and things? It's like, no, you don't. You don't, because if you've ever seen the first one, there's like the prologue where Cate Blanchett is talking. It's that whole story over a whole show. You know, that's like a lot of story that they crammed into like 5 minutes worth of stuff where they actually make the rings and there's like a war and everything. There's going to be like 4 or 5 seasons worth of this stuff. And they finally set up all of the chess pieces, so to speak, this first season. And I really, really, really loved it. Again, don't ask me to compare because House of the Dragon is awesome also for different reasons. In fact, I kind of like it better than the last couple of seasons of the old show. It's way more of the medieval soap opera that I feel it should be instead of, all out and everything like the last season or 2 of Game of Thrones was,
Yeah, I don't disagree.
So I have been.
Yeah, I do like it better than Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I think I do too. Well, Barry, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm glad we can get an hour of your time on a Sunday. We really appreciate you.
All right. Yeah, glad to talk to you guys.
I think we will see you again before too long. We make it over there in Chattanooga every once in a while to go hang out with Russ and go to the Alibi and such with him. We owe him a visit. I don't know if he's coming to our house for a Halloween party or not, but you're more than welcome if you want to have a good time.
Yeah, he's feeling that. He was a little puny this weekend, so he's feeling some better. So,
well, good deal. All right. So, hey, anything you want to plug? When's the next episode of the What Podcast?
Oh, yeah. We've started doing something we're calling the High Five, the What High Five, just to keep something out there every week. We're pulling 5 minutes or so from old past episodes, and we've got one coming this Wednesday. Brad and I recount the whole Bishop Briggs Topo Chico incident where he destroyed her dressing room. It's a pretty funny story. So yeah, we're excited about it. We're something to keep us kind of out there every week. As you guys know, it's kind of a lull period until rumor season starts and then the lineup. So,
well, I think rumor season is closer than you may think.
I know. I told them, I reached out and I said, we're supposed to have a show in November. And I thought, holy cow, that's just 2 weeks away. So yeah, it's coming. But like I said, we're here talking about Bonnaroo and it's October. So, amazing.
Well, I feel like the thick of rumor season for the past half a decade or whatever is usually around Halloween, Thanksgiving, because there's usually somebody that can't keep their mouth shut at a venue or something like that, or somebody that's in the big chain of command at Live Nation or something that lets something slip. Because if you think about it, presumably we'll be getting a lineup a week or 2 after New Year's. So something's booked. There's probably some big things booked, and it may not be that long until we start hearing about it.
Yeah. Do you think they do that on purpose?
I do. I absolutely do. Oh, this is the whole other conversation. I think some of those people in InfoRoo are employees that keep the crowd excited.
I think they do.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks.
All right, Barry, thank you so much. We appreciate you. We'll see you before too long. Everybody listen to the What Podcast. We love those guys. Everybody get out there and radiate positivity. We'll see you soon.
Bye.